So the priest, the preacher, would be here normally in the what's called the chancel. Have the nave down here. This is where the congregation is. And Christ, we know, preached one of his most famous sermons from the prow of a boat. And the pulpit is designed to be the prow of the boat. So it's as though we're watching Jesus come up to share with us his teachings. Here in the nave, here is the congregation. So here is our prow of the boat. And this particular pulpit is actually pretty rather extraordinary. It probably dates back to about 1660. Now, what happened in 1660 was that Charles II returned and became the king. It was the end of the Commonwealth, the end of the Puritan control. And initially he lied and said to all the Puritans who had taken over the Church of England was actually abolished in 1643. Bishops were banned, the use of the Book of Common Prayer was banned, all that was banned. And the Puritans took over. And they were very strict, banning on drinking. You didn't even celebrate Christmas because it was a pagan festival. It was very severe. It was quite likely that this church was actually a little bit abandoned at that time. And then in 1660, King Charles II is invited back because we've kind of basically got rather bored with the Commonwealth and with Puritanism. And he promises initially to all the Presbyterians, all the Puritan preachers who had taken over all the parish churches, pretty much, of course you can continue to worship as you want. Absolutely, we're going to do nothing to interfere. And he lied. And 18 months later, he said, no, I'm very sorry, unless you conform to the use of the Book of Common Prayer, which we still use to this day. If you've got to conform to the order of bishops and archbishops and so on. If you won't do that, you will not conform, you cannot be a priest and you must leave within, I think, about 2 months. And about a fifth of all the clergy of the Church of England, or in the churches in England, left rather than conform, and they became what we call non-conformists, Baptists, Congregationalists, Presbyterians, etc. And they were only allowed to build a chapel, and they had to be out by 1662. They could only build a chapel 5 miles away from any town. So the priest or the preacher who was here moved about a mile away and founded a new town or a new settlement called Falkland, which has never had an Anglican church to this day. It only has a chapel, even though now it's no longer used as a chapel. And coming out of Bath, heading towards the motorway, when you're 5 miles out, you pass through a little settlement, mostly known for its petrol station, called Pennsylvania, because that's where the Quakers moved, and they set up a Quaker community there, named it after Penn, the great Quaker founder who helped found Pennsylvania. And there's a cottage actually called 5 Mile Cottage, which marks you the point at which you can then build your chapel and you'll be safe. So that all went. And when the Anglicans came back, they put in this rather splendid pulpit. It's a very, very fine pulpit, actually. Really, really good wood. Probably from about 1662. And this is the really telling feature here, because this is carved in celebration of the Holy Communion. Now, Puritans very rarely actually celebrated Holy Communion. That was much more of an Anglican thing. Their role for the pulpit was to preach. This says, look, first of all, here are the wheat, which makes the bread that we celebrate the communion with. And remember, we're where the old altar was. And look, we have grapes. We do wine. We're back. Sherry parties, wine at dinner. We're back and we drink. It's a wonderful statement.